Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. There's a flood warning out for the eastern Alaska Range, the red illuminated areas here. Expecting 1 to 2 to maybe 4 inches of rain to fall starting tonight. Actually, it's already going on over there, but will become heavier tonight and continue probably into Wednesday morning. And anyway, so flooding pretty likely to occur in these areas since they were already received a lot of rain over the last couple of weeks there, and a lot more coming in. Currently, flood advisory here for the western Alaska Range for anywhere from 1/4 to 1.5 inches of rain to fall in the same time period, I think through Wednesday morning and possibly into Wednesday evening, and could be some minor flooding in these areas as well. Yesterday, satellites showed a system moving in from the northern Bering Sea, bringing rain into the interior, and a couple of bands spreading moisture westward, coming in out of northwest Canada and the northern Panhandle, all due to upper level low pressure here off the southeast coast that's been gradually creeping northward. And so today we'll see most of this has slid down to the southeast, while a couple of those cloud masses have merged and produced a big area of rainfall and moderate showers from the North Gulf Coast here, Yakutat to Cordova, right up across the Copper River Basin and into the central Tanana Valley on up toward the Brooks Range. And another one developing back here, another area of cloudiness and moisture over the northern southeast coast, bringing rain to areas like Haines, Juneau, over to Elfin Cove, Yakutat, and that's going to be following the same path in over the southeast interior, and that's why the flood advisories and warnings are out for the Alaska Range there. Probably see a pretty fair amount of rain in the Copper River Basin as well. This mostly just rain coming around on the north side of that system as it dropped down across Kodiak. Just some clouds there, but kind of a continuous rain most of the day from Iliamna, Kamishak Bay, and then cutting across mostly to the south of the Seldovia area. And then you get back into some moisture there over the North Gulf Coast. And with that upper level low here, the southwesterly flow dragging a lot of this moisture out and pulling it up northeastward and toward, well, first the Queen Charlotte's. You can see it spreading up over the Prince of Wales Island area. Rain falling at Klawock at 4 p.m. And see that moisture extends quite a ways back to the southwest. Otherwise, nice conditions today, southwest interior down into Bristol Bay as the clouds pulled away from the area there, and just some fog, which lifted over the Pribilofs today. Not a bad day actually over the Aleutians. This moisture here, mostly of the mid and high level variety, not a lot of rain, if any, occurred at all out there over the Aleutians. Most of the main rain producing band is back in this area here, just in advance of the occluded front, and really hasn't pushed much up to the north, but probably will later tonight. The Arctic coast, not too bad, some broken clouds there. Here's the next system pushing eastward and actually picking the winds up out ahead of it. Prefrontal winds gusting 20 to 30 miles an hour there at Savunga, on up through the Bering Strait, and 35-mile-an-hour wind gusts reported this afternoon at Cape Lisburne. So a little bit more of a wind producer than I thought it was going to be yesterday. And that'll eventually bring some rain, which is currently falling over the Russian Far East here. That'll spread it on in tonight as it follows, and most of this will slide up to the east-northeast with a lot less coming down to the south, if any at all. On the chart today, again, the area of rain here circulating up around on the north side of that low center. Otherwise, it's pushing off, weakening, and this area will scatter out the showers and end tonight with some lingering showers back to the northwest there. Areas of clearing even farther to the northwest, maybe a risk of a shower over the Seward Peninsula. And fair conditions developing and continuing. Actually, pretty nice day up there, and we have a pretty nice evening, overnight period tonight, but all of the heavier precipitation going on over the Tanana Valley, 40-mile country down across the Copper River Basin to the North Gulf Coast there, and scattered showers to the southeast coast, maybe ending completely, possibly here over the southern Panhandle. Some of this moisture may produce some periods of light rain at times, but I think it'll kind of break off and dissipate, and then another one will develop and stay mostly toward the Queen Charlottes through tonight, the way it looks right now. And for tonight, there it is, that moves up to the north, high pressure, weak high pressure at the surface there, but this low off the coast signifying the upper level low, which is more or less in this area here. So that's going to continue to pull that moisture westward out of Canada and bring the rainfall, especially on the upslope areas of the mountainous terrain there, eastern Alaska range into the Tanana Valley, maybe the White Mountains. Look for moderate rain showers to flat out areas of rain to isolated thunderstorms, kind of diminishing tonight. Just a possibility of a thunderstorm over the Talkeetna Mountains. Otherwise, just some very scattered shower conditions down into the Chugach. Fair over the interior here. And then the slow-moving front, actually the wind flow more southwesterly, so it's eastward progression, slowing down, more of a push up to the northeast there. And could get some pretty brisk winds ahead of the front, even stronger gusts possible later tonight up there, where they're already gusting pretty good at Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, on down through the Bering Strait, of course dropping right off behind the front there across St. Lawrence Island. And it trails on back to the southwest and leaves the southern and southeast Bering Sea under high pressure, centered just north of the Cold Bay area there. Light variable winds continue for the Fox Islands with areas of fog and low clouds, as well as some clearing. Chance of rain now, Adak onto the west, just a risk for Atka, but that'll change. Looks like that will sweep up and or edge its way up and catch Atka. Looks like periods of rain for Adak, as well as an increase in the winds. Could go into small craft advisory type winds tomorrow here over portions of the central Aleutians. Otherwise, continuing light, Nikolsky on over to Cold Bay. Very light and variable here over the southeast Bering Sea and Bristol Bay areas. It's a light westerly drift in that area. Kodiak Island, variable clouds, partly sunny conditions, dry, and also dry up into southern Cook Inlet. Afternoon showers, some could be on the moderate to heavy side. And again, some of the taller clouds developing into scattered isolated thunderstorms, but more numerous along the Alaska range, and then scattered again all the way up to the Brooks Range and on over into northwest Canada, with an area of showery and cloudy conditions extending, looks like the full stretch of the Brooks Range here, meeting up with the narrow band of light rain with that front as it pushes up to the northeast. And then again, still have that southwesterly flow latching onto this moisture here from this system, bringing a chance of light rain and clouds. Lower conditions here over the southern southeast coast. Looks better up to the north. Could be a dry day around Yakutat on into Juneau and Haines, as well as McCarthy, maybe clearing out there, but just to the north, expect a lot of showers and clouds across all of the Copper River Basin, heaviest along the Alaska Range again. Any clearing that takes place there, consider it a bonus. Out to the west, small craft advisory winds through tomorrow night with this front, and the rain will begin to push eastward, catching the western island here, the Fox Islands, and just a slight chance of rain. Clouds more likely for the Unalaska area with precip all the way back out to Shemya, but nothing too terribly heavy. High pressure holding here along the southwest coast. In fact, starting to develop and build inland here a little bit, but still not strong enough to shut these showers completely off. The system now up to the northeast, all that's left behind is the upper level low pressure area, kind of signified by those two dash troughs there. So a lot of showers, a lot of clouds. Cool conditions continue through Wednesday, and look for a decrease in the precipitation now over the southeast interior areas and the Alaska Range, but not ending completely, but look for a little more sunshine, a little less of the shower conditions, probably a little lighter as well. Looks like that'll shift up to the north over the Brooks Range and maybe some of that spilling into the Arctic coast at times, but you'll hold on to those low clouds and fog like you saw today up there, probably through Wednesday. Southeast coast, pretty good system now coming into the Queen Charlotte Islands, and that'll push a fairly active cold front, at least thermal gradient wise active, not a lot of wind with it, but it'd be a good shot of moisture coming in, maybe staying south of the area there, but that'll bring chances of rain up into the southern southeast coast. And again, more showering intermittent on to the north, and then back to the west. This front still hung up out here over the Aleutians, and winds maybe 10 to 20 miles an hour, and that's about it. And then this system here is going to take off to the northeast and probably spread some clouds and rain in across St. Lawrence Island, eventually into the northwest part of the state on into Thursday and Friday. As that happens, this high out here over the southeast Bering Sea and the associated upper level ridge is going to start building in, and looks like by the end of the week and through the weekend it'll become drier and hotter across all of southern Alaska. Temperatures today in the 50s across the southeast coast, from 53 at Klawock to 59 at Metlakatla. Same thing at the state capital and Skagway. Mid-50s across the North Gulf Coast, Yakutat and Cordova at 56, 53 Seldovia, and a 51 at Gulkana. Pretty cool up in the Northway to Delta areas, but Fairbanks up to 65, even with the rainfall, and Eagle up to 75, down about 5 or 6 degrees from yesterday. 72 for Yukon, 73 over at Bettles, and a 70 there at Arctic Village. 41, the cool spot at 4 p.m. All these temperatures are at 4 p.m. over at Kaktovik. 45 in Barrow, Dead Horse up to 57, 51 Point Lay with a 63 at Ambler, and 50s, upper 50s to mid 60s over the southwest inland areas. 40s along the coast, 58 there at Kotzebue, and a 60 at Bethel. 56 King Salmon, otherwise 40s down the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, mid 50s on the Pacific side, 58 at Kodiak, and upper 40s to mid 50s out in the Aleutians. Lows tonight, 30s on the Arctic coast, the lower 40s, otherwise 50s to lower 60s, warmest conditions up there over the Yukon Flats, and 40s here over the Copper River Basin, otherwise 40s to lower 50s everywhere else, all in the 40s out over the Aleutians. For the highs tomorrow, warm swath here from northeast to southwest, 65 to 73, say, cooler back to the northwest and a little cooler, mostly in the 50s, high 60s, high 50s to mid 60s there across the southeast interior, and mid 60s for the Panhandle. Flying weather, IFR definitely surging northeastward here, already out there, and will be up in across the southern and western Seward Peninsula and areas, starting out pretty solid IFR up through the Bering Strait, and to the west there begin to break out a little bit or diminish in coverage there into the afternoon. Something of a break, not much over the southern Bering Sea. Solid IFR from Atka on over to about Amchitka. And then marginal VFR here, actually shifting eastward gradually tomorrow from the Alaska Range to start with, and then moving into the Copper River, or stay in the Copper River Basin area right up into the White Mountains, and VFR in the forecast for the southeast coast. Anaktuvik, VFR, risk of an isolated thunderstorm. Adigan, VFR, possibly marginal, becoming VFR. And Lake Clark and Merrill starting out marginal, but improving to VFR throughout the late morning and by noontime hours. Rainy VFR from start to finish. Windy, occasionally marginal. Actually, just on the western edge of things there. Marginal VFR to the east, VFR just to the west. Isabel VFR, or marginal VFR, both for Isabel and Mentestas back with marginal VFR. Tania, marginal to start with, becoming VFR. It possibly could be marginal the entire day with even slightly lower conditions on the eastern approach. Portage, marginal VFR, and then becoming VFR. And for the freezing levels, not much out here over the Bering Sea, 12,000 feet, and then about 4,000 feet colder up over the northern areas. And over the northeast, 12,000 foot freezing levels there as that upper level high pulls up to the north a little bit, and then the colder air aloft here, of course, this gradient pulling that moisture westward. For the icing threats, areas of light to isolated moderate mixed icing here over the southeast interior. Could be a more solid band of that in this location, breaking out, and even less chances back here to the west. That would be mostly rime and below 20,000 feet out here over the central Aleutians. And from there, looking at the winds aloft chart, here's this upper level low continuing to pull slowly northward in over this Copper River Basin tomorrow, but the low center right along the coast. High pressure pulling up to the north, so we have this strong southwest-southwest jet across the Bering, splits as it approaches the west coast there. One branch off to the northeast, a stronger branch down to the southeast, so that's going to carry most of that moisture either up that way or down that way, and then this high pressure will build in across southern Alaska by Friday. And 9,000 feet, high pressure there, light variable winds, maybe northerlies at 20 knots coming across the central Alaska range on down into the Talkeetnas, maybe southwesterlies 20 to 25 to the northwest, southeast, possibly up to 35 across Dixon Entrance, and these winds out here from the east. 3,000 feet, high pressure looking pretty good here over southern Alaska, keeping the winds light and variable. On the northwest side of that, up to 25 knots there, St. Lawrence Island, up across the western Arctic coast. Light winds here over the Gulf, 20 knots, southern Panhandle, maybe up to 35 knots there over the Aleutians. And with that will be some moderate chop, mostly to the south of the chain. Light to isolated moderate a little farther north. Same thing here through the Bering Strait, some possible light bumpy stuff there. And again, for small aircraft here, the Alaska range down to maybe the Talkeetnas. And then moderate chop coming up toward the southern southeast coast tomorrow. And after the break, hangar flying, I'll be back with the marine forecast.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Cornfield. On behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome to another edition of Hangar Flying. My guest this evening is Diana Moroney. She was on our last program. We invited her back. Welcome back to Hangar Flying, Diana.
Thank you very much.
Just as a recap, you fly the Boeing 747 for Alaska Air.
Atlas Air.
Atlas Air, and you fly Cessna 185 in the Iditarod Air Force. So we talked a little bit about your start in flying, and I wanted to maybe give some advice to other people that are starting out in aviation, whether they're young or older people, whether they're in Anchorage or in the bush. You know, can maybe give some advice to what they can do.
I think here in Alaska it's easier than other places. It's going to cost a lot of money. Of course, we know that, at the cost of aviation nowadays. But to keep going, and you could, in Alaska, the nice thing is you can get a job out in the bush to build hours to where you can get to a point. So if it's just perseverance and it's continuing to build those hours and get that experience, it's very rewarding once it's done. I've enjoyed all the flying I've done, and it's allowed me to see all parts of the state.
I think the other good advice too is that there's a lot of ground preparation, studying and reading as much material as you can to get prepared, get mentally prepared for that flight, for thinking about airplanes and aviation.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And weather, understanding that there's a lot that can be done outside of an airplane in preparation.
Well, good advice. So let's talk a little bit about the Iditarod Air Force. How long have you been flown for them?
I've been flying with them since 1998, but not every year. When I was racing dogs, I would obviously take that year off. And it's been a wonderful experience. Most of the people that start flying for Iditarod keep flying with it. We have people who have flown in 30 years, and it's just a wonderful friendship. We get to fly all over the state. We get to participate in the race. We haul people and dogs. We volunteer our airplanes to do it, and we just go out and have fun.
I have a picture here that should be coming up on the screen. Maybe you can describe that picture for us.
That is me in our 185 in Unalakleet, and Unalakleet, as we know, is an extremely windy, can be an extremely windy place, and a lot of times you'll get into there, you can get into there and land okay, but it's harder to taxi around because of the wind, especially in a tail dragger. So that was somebody holding onto the rope so I can get turned to go into the taxiway.
So do you have any good stories, Iditarod stories that you could share with us?
Good Iditarod stories?
Or Iditarod Air Force stories, or something that's, you know, something that was unusual that you had fun doing.
We've always had fun with it. A couple of years ago, we ended up pulling actually Bruce and I went and did it, I thought I was going to get to run a team on into Koyuk. I thought the musher was injured, and I was all excited because I'd get back on the runners. And so we both hopped in the airplane and went out, landed on the sea ice between Shaktoolik and Koyuk. And it turned out the musher wasn't sick. The dogs had decided they had had enough. So we were able to land next to the trail, load up the dogs, and take them back to Unalakleet. You know, that was enjoyable, and all the flying we do out of on Iditarod is enjoyable.
So of all the flying that you do, both in your professional life and Iditarod, what's the most fun? What part of it is the most fun for you?
It's all fun. It has its different aspects. Flying in the larger airplane, number one, I'm flying one of the largest jets in the world, and it's pretty impressive, I think. I really enjoy that. And I enjoy traveling around the world, seeing places that I probably wouldn't get to see otherwise. But on the other hand, flying the 185 for Iditarod and also for just our own pleasure, it allows us to gain access to all parts of Alaska, and which many people who live here have never seen. So it's like great mode of transportation, great scenery, great places to go. It's all fun.
So we have just a little time left for maybe a safety tip that you can give some of the pilots out there. The summer season's just starting. We've got some holidays coming up that are pretty significant.
I think being, number one, letting somebody know where you're going is always, you always think you hop in the airplane and I'm only going out for half an hour, everything will be fine, and that's when something's going to go wrong. And as you know, our weather here can change so quickly. I think being very cautious of the weather and watching what's going on in this state is extremely important for personal flying.
That's a good point. And also, if you're changing your route of flight, make sure somebody knows about that flight service. You may decide instead of going one direction, you're going another one. People don't know where to look for
Exactly.
you. So,
that happened to me on Iditarod. Trying to get through to, trying to get to the other side to McGrath, and I had to change instead of going through Rainy Pass, of course, I had to go north, and that was the only, nobody knew where I was except for by contacting flight service out of Fairbanks.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Diana. I really appreciate you being on the show, and some good stories. Folks, there have been some recent changes in the Common Traffic Advisory frequencies, CTAF for the Mat-Su Valley. To learn more, contact Flight Service Station or check the Alaska Supplement for designated CTAF area frequencies. And thank you very much for watching, and fly safe.
Welcome back. Well, light variable winds in across the central and southern inside channels. A little bit more of a discernible southerly component to the north here, up to 15 knots. Otherwise, west-northwest to northeast here, very light out along the coast. Wednesday, a little bit of a change, but nothing too heavy. Southeast to east, 15 knots there. And same thing over the inner channels. Southern areas could come up to 15 knots. Light and variable, though, over the inside waters. Central areas, south 15, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, and kind of light variable northwesterlies up here along the north coast. For the western Gulf Coast, all the way down across the Kodiak marine zones tomorrow, light variable winds 5 to 10 or 15 knots. Southwesterlies, Kamishak Bay, right up into Cook Inlet predominantly. Could be variable as well, and variable to southwest for Prince William Sound. Then on Wednesday, could see some southwesterlies up to 20 knots for Shelikof Strait. Seas maybe up to 5 feet. Otherwise, not much change here for Cook Inlet, staying on the light side, mostly southwest or west-southwest. Same thing for the coast here, the North Gulf Coast back in toward the Barren Islands. West-southwest at about 15, and southwest 15 there for the Prince William Sound zone. For Bristol Bay tomorrow, light westerlies, variable to dead calm here along the Alaska Peninsula. Northeast maybe 10, and that's about it, taking more of a turn to the east-northeast there on the Pacific side of the peninsula down this way. And then those will turn southeast and pick up to 10 to 15 knots on Wednesday. Light variable winds over Bristol Bay under high pressure, and light variable winds also southwest of Kodiak Island. For the Aleutians, southeasterly, staying light though for the Fox Islands, 5 to 10 knots. Then you pick up a little bit stronger wind here. Adak, Atka, east 20 to 25 knots. Small craft advisories more likely on the southern Pacific zone there, northeast 15 to 20, and that more or less holds through Wednesday on the directions northeast, east-northeast, 20 to 25 knots. Could be small craft advisories all through this area Tuesday night, and then kind of falling back to the southern areas again. Fox Islands, a little bit of a pickup. Now you have a breeze blowing east-southeast, 15 to maybe as high as 20 knots. No change here to the west. For the southwest coast, west-southwest at 10, quite light, maybe up to 20 knots there, St. Lawrence Island, 15 knots to 10 knots near the Pribilofs. And for the Wednesday, not much change except swinging around to the east-southeast here for the St. George, St. Paul area. Along the coast, westerly drift at 10, 15 to 20 knot breeze now from the northern bearing up across St. Lawrence Island. For the Arctic coast, east-northeast at 15 on the east side, easterlies on the central coast, variable winds here. And then you pick up, still hang on to those 20 knotters, and they should be lighter than today with the front rolling through, 15 here for the Chukchi Sea. And then about the same in these areas out here to the west on Wednesday. Northeast or variable, light for the central coast, light for the eastern Arctic coast. Could kick up to 20 knots here, 10 to 20 knots there from Deadhorse on over to Kaktovik. Tonight, flood warning out, eastern Alaska Range, flood advisory out for 1 to 4 inches of rain for the the eastern Alaska Range, lighter amounts for the western Alaska Range. You can see a lot of showers, thunderstorms here, some of which will develop all the way down into the Kenai Peninsula, but not to the extent that they will up over the Alaska Range or even the Copper River Basin, drying out over the northern southeast coast. This front sliding up to the northeast, but the upper level low is going to keep it cool and showery, at least through Wednesday there. High pressure to the southwest is going to begin building in over the area for sunnier and hotter conditions late in the week and into the weekend. And otherwise, southeast coast here going to be under the influence of this system that's mostly pushing in toward the Queen Charlotte Islands.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.